Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Learn Commerce with Namita. I am Namita. In today's video, let us discuss what is contract and essential elements of a valid contract. So let's start the session. The question is define contract. Explain essential elements of a valid contract. Now this question was asked in SPPU TY examination. This was asked for 15 marks. Now students, how to attempt the 15 marks question of university? Remember 4 important things, like start your answer with introduction, definition, explanation, and conclude your answer with conclusion. So if you follow these 4 steps, I am sure you will score good marks. So this question of define contract and explain essential elements of valid contract was asked in last year TY examination. So let's see how what is the correct answer or how you can attempt this question. So first start the answer with introduction. So in introduction you can write like the law relating to contract is governed by the Indian Contract Act 1872. So Indian Contract Act came into force on 1st September 1872. This act, the Indian Contract Act, deals with the general principles and rules governing contract. The Indian Contract Act 1872 is applicable to whole of India. This was the introduction. Now what is asked? Define contract. So it is expected that you should write the definition of contract. So the definition of contract. The term contract is defined under section 2, subsection H of the Indian Contract Act 1872 as an agreement enforceable by law. So what is the definition of contract and in which section the contract is defined? It is defined in section 2 subsection H of the Indian Contract Act 1872. So it is defined as what? As an agreement enforceable by law. So every agreement and promise which is enforceable at the court of law is a contract. Now what is agreement? This agreement which is enforceable by law what is equals to what? Contract. Now for example, if A sells a car to B for 5 lakhs, A is selling a car to B for 5 lakh. Now there is a contract between A or there is an agreement between A and B. A is going to sell the car to B for 5 lakhs. Now here B refused to make the payment to A. Now here A, who is the seller, he can file a case against B in the court. So this is what? This agreement is enforceable in the court. That's why it is called as contract. Now next is what? Essential elements of a valid contract. First point is offer and acceptance or an agreement. Now what agreement is? Agreement means what? Offer plus acceptance. So in agreement, one party gives the offer to other party and other party accepts the offer. It is called as agreement. So an agreement is a first essential element of a contract. According to section 2 subsection E of the Indian Contract Act 1872, defines an agreement as every promise and every set of promises forming consideration for each other is the agreement. That means the offer which is given to other party and other parties accepting that offer, and this offer and acceptance is having what consideration towards each other is called as agreement. And section 2 subsection B, a proposal when accepted means when the offer is accepted, that means it becomes a promise. That's why an agreement is an outcome of an offer and acceptance. So this is the most important element of a valid contract, offer and acceptance. Every agreement should have at least offer, and that offer should be accepted by the other party. Next element is two parties. A valid contract must include a minimum of two parties. That means one person should make the offer and other person on whom the offer is made should be accepted. For what? To become it as a enforceable. So in a contract there should be at least two parties, two or more than parties. A valid contract is only valid when there are two parties in a contract. A individual person cannot make the offer to himself and he cannot accept it also. That's why it is not a valid contract. So in a valid contract, compulsory two parties are necessary. Like one party will give the offer to other party and other party is going to accept that offer. Next element is legal obligation. A legal obligation means which can be enforceable. So the parties entering into a contract must have the intention of entering into a legal obligation. So the parties who are entering into a contract, the intention is to create some legal obligation or legal enforceability should be there. So social agreement and obligations are not considered as contract as they do not create any legal obligation on any party. So social agreement, like for example, suppose Mr. C invites Mr. D at dinner and Mr. D accepts the invitation, and here Mr. D, if he does not go at C's house for the dinner, so here C cannot file a case against D. Why he did not come at my place for the dinner? So this type of invitation for dinner or for some other parties are called as what? Social agreement. And this, so there is no legal intention, okay, of invite. There is no legal obligation between C and D. That's why C cannot file a case or cannot take any action against D. Why? It is a social agreement, because when they were entering into this thing for an agreement, it was not created legally. So whenever the parties who are entering into a contract, their intention should be legal obligation. Next is certain terms. So a legal contract or a valid contract must have certainty of meaning. It means that the agreement should be defined, should be clear. It should not be unclear or indefined. Whatever the contract is there, it should have certain meaning. It should have a certain clarity should be there, and it should be defined. Now the contract which is indefined cannot be a valid contract. For example, see here, A agrees to buy B's house for a reasonable amount. Now here A is buying the house of B, but what is the actual amount of house is not mentioned. So can this contract between A and B, can it be a valid contract? No. Why? Because the exact amount is not mentioned. So the agreement or the contract must be clear, defined, and whatever terms and conditions are there, it should be written properly in the contract. Next point is free consent. Free consent is the parties entering into a contract must give their free consent to contract. Free consent means what? Two or more persons are said to consent when they agree upon the same thing in same sense. So both the parties who are entering into a contract, they should give their free consent, means they should agree upon the same thing in a same sense. Then it will be a free consent and it is considered as a valid contract. Next element of a valid contract is possibility of performance of an agreement. This is very important. Possibility of performance of an agreement means the terms of agreement should be capable of performance. So whatever the agreement is there between the two parties, that agreement should be capable of the performance. It should be, some outcome should come from that agreement. Okay, so see here, example, A enters into a contract with B. A is entering into a contract with B. So contract is what? To bring the back to the life of B's father for 10,000. Now since the contract involves the performance of impossibility, it is invalid contract. Now here A is entering into a contract with B of what? That B's father who is no more. Okay, bring that father's life again. It is impossible because a person who is no more, if the person is dead, we cannot make him alive. Okay, so that's why this contract is what? The performance is impossibility. So the agreement which is possible, the performance means both the parties, Mr. A and B, both are getting some outcome from that agreement, then it is called as possibility of performance. Next element is lawful object. Lawful object is what? The object of an agreement must be lawful. Means the object means the purpose of entering into a contract or the motive of why you are entering into a contract with other person, that motive or the object or purpose should be lawful. The object of an agreement must not be illegal, immoral or opposed to public policy or public property. So the agreement between two parties, if that agreement is illegal, so it is unlawful object. Like for example, smuggling. If a person is entering into a contract with other person for smuggling, then it is what? Obviously it is a illegal object. So it is not a valid contract. So to make a contract which is valid in terms of law, so the object and the purpose should be lawful. Next essential element is lawful consideration. So what is consideration? And the consideration should be what? Lawful. So consideration is the price for the contract. Consideration means the value for the contract. Consideration means something in return for something given. A valid contract must include a consideration that must be something of value. Now for example, if Mr. A is selling his car to Mr. B for 5 lakh. So for A, consideration will be 5 lakh and for B, the consideration will be the car. So that's why consideration means what? Something in return for something given. If you give something to other person, so in return the other person should also give. That is what? Consideration for both the party. But this consideration should be a lawful consideration. If you give money to someone else for killing the third person, So this is what illegal consideration. Killing someone is what illegal activity. So the consideration should be a lawful consideration. Next element is competency, which means capacity to parties. So parties must be legally competent to enter into a contract. Now every person is capable of entering into a contract. Now as per law or as per Indian Contract Act, the people or the person who are considered to enter into a contract are a person who is the age of maturity as per law. Means the person who has completed the age of 18 is allowed to enter into a contract. Then a person who is a sound mind and a person who is not disqualified by law is capable to enter into a contract. So capacity of party means the people who are eligible to enter into a contract or eligible to make a contract with other person. These are called as capacity to parties. So who are those people? Like the person who has completed the age of 18 means majority, then a sound mind and the person who is not disqualified by law. These they can enter into a contract. Next is agreement not expressly declared void. Now section 24 to 30 of Indian Contract Act 1872 has laid down the agreement which are expressly declared void. Next is legal formalities. Now agreement can be what? Either oral or written. If the agreement is in a written form, so that written agreement should be properly stamped, should be there on that agreement. Registration as well as the attested copy should be properly. So all these formalities should be taken into the consideration. Now these were all the legal essential elements of valid contract. Now conclude your answer with a proper conclusion. So a contract is an agreement enforceable by law if it is made by free consent of the party who are competent to contract, and the agreement is made with a lawful object as for a and the object with a lawful consideration. So in this way you have to conclude your answer. So to write the answer of 15 marks for this, like define contract and essential element, all the points of essential elements have been covered in this video, as well as like how to start the answer, like introduction, definition, then explanation, as well as conclusion is explained in this video. I hope you have understood today's video. Thank you very much. Please subscribe my YouTube channel, like and share the video, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the latest notification.